first of the year, and we can figure out if we want to talk about all of them a little bit or just focus not on a few. First big one was Brown-Forman lays off 12% of its global workforce. And there's Glenn Glasgow temporarily closing and suspending production. Woodford Double Oak will now be a permanent staple in the Woodford lineup. The Jack Daniel's warehouse collapse, the Pappy Barrel rifle. Diageo's whiskey sales are down 20% over previous year.
Well, you certainly don't have an agenda with these articles. A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Gold Eagle Jake.
And tonight we're overdue for a news update from the bourbon world. Probably about 9 months, 10 months overdue.
We talk a lot about news, but we have had some really interesting and fun episodes lately with some cool guests. So I think it's time to just get back to a little bit of what's going on in the industry and do a little check-in for 2025 so far.
Yeah. So
plus
Dan went through.
Jake's been sick, so he didn't want to do anything.
Yeah, I
so
keep
I had
getting
to do work.
fucking sick. So, yeah. So Dan
everyone I know
through,
with little kids.
Yeah, it's just the life, unfortunately.
Wear a mask.
I'm not going to wear a mask in my house. So Dan went through and combed for stuff since January, important stories related to the whiskey world. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one.
Yeah, so I swear I wasn't just like looking for storylines to further prove my point that we've been talking about for years.
Of course you're starting with this.
Like half of the stories we talk about are all along the same lines.
Buckle up. Let's go.
So,
let's get through it.
Right at the end of the year, beginning of the year, it came out that Brown-Forman is laying off 12% of its global workforce. So not necessarily on the production side. A lot of it's going to be sales and marketing side throughout the world. But they are laying off 12% of their workforce, or have, just with the slowdown in sales that they've seen. I don't know how long ago or how many years ago, how much percent they hired to keep up with the demand. More or less, I feel that this is just a correction to being overstaffed because of the peak that we had. But still, they're a pretty large company, and a 12% layoff is a pretty big hit across the board.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I know the industry that I'm in particular, has been having a tough couple of years since the peak of like 2021, 2022 in sales volume. My guess is that it's probably near like universal across like all industries. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that much that they're trying to thin out the workforce a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty standard correction. I mean, we all know things were booming out of control, and the market was going insane for a couple of years. And these companies just had to hire and hire and hire and bring more people on board to help manage the boom. And now that we know it's kind of tapering back a little bit, there's probably a bunch of people who don't really have anything to do, or don't have much value to add anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't come as a surprise. I mean, we've been talking about the trend the last couple of years where it's recessed a little bit. It hasn't taken a big downturn. It just kind of leveled off and fallen back a point or two here or there. But I feel we're through the big push of it, and it's just kind of going to fall back a little bit and go back to normal. But I think we're starting to see when companies are starting to do big things like that, I think they're starting to forecast it out as well too. Because there's a bunch of other distilleries along the way that we'll talk about a big one coming up, but there's been some that have really slowed down the amount of production just because we've talked about how much whiskey's been sitting out there. With sales slowing down, it's time to scale back production with it too.
Well, also, I mean, maybe it's a good transition into the next article, but when this was booming, distilleries ran out of everything. And so what do? You just start making more and more and more and more and more, and you make as much as you can. And we saw so many distilleries put in another still, just constantly building rick houses. So I think now that it's starting to slow down a little bit, we're going to see maybe some things like Glenglassaugh, which I believe is our next point of talking, cease distilling because they just made 10 times more than what they normally do in a 3-year span. And now what are you going to do with that 10 years from now?
Yeah.
If whiskey is staying stagnant.
Yep. Yeah. And that's perfect transition over to Glenglassaugh. So, a Scotch distillery that wasn't really talked about a ton in like the norms of when you think about big Scotch distilleries. It wasn't one that ever really came to front of mind until, was it 2 years ago? Whiskey Advocate gave the Sandon Whiskey of the Year, which created a big boom for it, like it always does with the top whiskeys from Whiskey Advocate. But it's crazy to think that a year and a half ago you couldn't find the whiskey anywhere, and now they're back to it's temporarily shut down. What it sounds like they're going to be doing is using a small crew that's going to hop between a couple different distilleries. So one will be down for a little bit, and then the distiller, while another one's producing, then they'll shut down another one and move producers elsewhere and just kind of keep hopscotching them around.
Get it?
So
hopscotching.
Hopscotching. Ooh, I wasn't even trying to make a pun, but thank you for one. Thank you for making it seem like I'm smarter than what I actually am, Jake. It's kudos
thought it was
to you.
Clever.
I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, but
I think Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say it's a distillery, Glenglassaugh, that nobody really had heard of. They had been around for a while with some history, but then Brown-Forman kind of rebranded a couple of years ago and came out with some new SKUs and new items. And I think they grabbed a lot of attention through that rebrand. And yeah, they probably saw a huge boost in sales because it was something new and shiny, and then they won that award. So they ramped up production, and now realizing, okay, we don't need to continuously ramp this up.
Right. I think the key here is what you said, Jake, is stagnation in sales. I don't think we're going to see this like bottoming out that Dan is crossing his fingers for.
I've never said bottom out. I said we passed the peak. Which the last 2 years it's been going down, which means it was higher. Now it's going down, and it was at its highest before it started falling, which creates like a peak-looking substance.
You're saying falling, though.
It's falling.
We're saying plateauing. There's a difference.
Well,
but I mean, whenever you're in that kind of like flat year-over-year growth, you want to try and lean things out as much as possible because outlook is, hard when you're in that kind of that flat period. No, not really sure if you're going to see another spike or if things are going to start to drop off. So yeah, I mean, I think it's probably smart that some of these distilleries are either like Dan's describing, doing some kind of like rolling production, kind of system, or I mean, like the big six, I don't think are probably going to slow down, but they've
cut production on some of them already.
Some of them, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already sitting on enough whiskey to capture another like several percent market share for each of them. Over the next few years, like we keep talking about, that stuff's going to be on the shelves everywhere all the time. So it's not going to be easy for smaller brands to get that shelf space anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, also with Scotch, it's a lot different, mostly because a lot of these distilleries are very remote, and to get all the resources needed to keep a distillery up and running. We're not just talking like ingredients and distillers, but all the other moving pieces that are involved in keeping a building operating in a remote area. I think it makes more sense in that aspect in the Scotch world to do something like this, where you're kind of rotating your people around, especially if their distillery is owned by the same corporation.
Yeah, it's also a little bit different thinking about these Scotch distilleries because what Glenglassaugh I think I saw was since the late 1800s. So it's crazy to think of some of these places that have just constantly been producing for.
I think they went through a very long shutdown period, and
I believe they did too.
Resurrected brand, but
Brown-Forman resurrected them and rebranded them.
There's a bunch of those in Scotland, so it's not like uncommon.
We'll see too. On a different note, the Liney's Lodge is being shut down in Wisconsin. And it's hard to think if you guys want to go to one of the coolest brewery tours I've been on up in Chippewa Falls when you go to Leinenkugel's, but that's been shut down, and now Molson Coors shut them up, and now the Leinenkugel's are trying to get it back up and functional, but they haven't been successful in that. But it's just kind of some of these historical buildings that are just going to be sitting now for a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that has a lot to do with just big corporations buying out smaller companies and looking at financials on paper and just saying, okay, we're operating this massive production factory producing Leinenkugel somewhere else, and this little lodge is really, really cool, but we're making pennies on it compared to what we're making out of our factory production site. So that is a little sad because I had never been there and I've heard great things. And I did see that the Leinenkugel brothers were trying to buy it back and open it up again. And it's in my opinion, a shame that Molson Coors won't let them do that.
Yeah, they're going to be trying some different things. This is off topic, but a fun thing to talk about. But yeah, it's like when I was up there years ago to do the tour, like there's a creek that runs through the brewery there, and that's where they started getting their water from, is directly from that creek. And they still have their original brick pump house from like the early 1900s that they were pumping out of. And some of those buildings are close to 100 years old that you're walking through. And it's northern small town Wisconsin, and the amount of jobs they provided up there. And, like a lot of things that we've done as times have gone on is we've polluted a lot of things. And they used a lot of the money that they were making to help clean up that river or that stream and the source of their water to make sure that they were still getting good water in. And it's just a fun, cool place to be. So it sucks they're down. Hopefully Leinenkugel's brothers. They obviously made a shit ton of money selling out to Molson Coors. So hopefully they can figure something out to keep that place running. But it sucks. That's my favorite place to be at, or my favorite brewery I've ever been to. So
yeah. So to get us a little back on topic here, these conversations are very fun, and I'm sure our listeners enjoy wherever it takes us and talking about something new here and there. But we're talking about Brown-Forman, and I know you had mentioned you read somewhere. Jake mentioned whiskeys being on the shelf. I know you mentioned somewhere that you saw Woodford Double Oak is now going to be a permanent shelf SKU.
Yeah, so for the last few years, they've been releasing a very limited supply of Double Oak, and I think last year it was a raffle to get one, and then you had to go down to the distillery and get it. Yeah. It started off because for Double Oak, for the Woodford Double Oak, they won't leave it in the second barrel for more than 12 months. And the reason they started doing some of these is they found out that they screwed up and left some sitting longer than what they should have been. So that's when they decided to think about what to do, and they decided to make this Double Oak. It's been a couple small rollouts. Go ahead. Sorry.
So is it not aged in a second barrel then? Is it just aged longer?
I think I'll have to double check. I'll pull it back up here. I know it was longer for a decent amount, but I can't remember if it was a second barrel or not.
I thought they put it in a second barrel. But
I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing.
Positive.
And it was I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And since they're not, since it was past the amount of when they could sell it as considered double oak, since it was over a year, they decided to put it in second to secondary. Yeah, so even longer than a 2-year second. It's
So
no,
maybe
it
maybe
hasn't
you'll
been in the
I'm
second.
pretty sure they do not
No,
transfer
it's
it
not.
again.
It's,
No.
it's they're saying that some of it's been long enough to be what they could consider a triple or quadruple oak bourbon, but it's just that it's been in
Interesting.
there for too long. So a lot more of the wood profile comes through. Now, I've never tried it. We've talked a couple different times. We've mentioned it as one of those like $50 bourbon ranges that's pretty good. And if you like all of the hard to find stuff, double oak is usually one to go because that has like the sweet vanilla flavor profile to it. And it's what, $50 or so for a double oak, 55 somewhere in there.
It's about 55.
Now it's going to be a staple. It's probably going to be about as hard to find as the Masters Reserve or the Masters releases or the batch.
Oh, so it's
Getting
not gonna-
easier and easier.
It's not.
Well-
I mean, it'll be. They'll have it every year, just like they have the Woodford Reserve.
Okay, so
Masters
it's going to be an
Collection.
annual release. It's not going to be
Right.
a everyday shelf
Yeah,
item.
and it's in the exact same bottle as the batch proof series and everything. That kind of rounded bottle. The main difference between this and the double oak is that this bottle is going to retail for $200.
That's
Yeah.
where like Woodford sucks.
So to talk on the double oak a little bit, I think we got 6 bottles. We put one on the bar, so I did get to try it. And then it has already been snagged up in our end of the year emails. And most people, from what I'm seeing in bourbon groups, have been going crazy trying to find it. And everyone seems to be sort of let down after tasting it.
Well, for $200, it
Myself
better be,
included.
like, incredibly spectacular.
And it's still just at 90.4%.
Yes,
so it's not even
it's
like
still
a
at
batch proof.
yeah.
where
It's, if it was, I mean, batch proof is. I think batch proof is still questionable on its $160 price point, but I think it's a phenomenal pour.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you get Woodford Reserve at 120-ish proof. And then, yeah, it's pretty sad to see the double oak be $200 and at 90 proof, and have most people that taste it say, it's only like a little bit better than the regular double oak off the shelf. Definitely not going to pay 3 times as much.
Yeah, this is where like I've talked before about how Woodford kind of pisses me off with the batch proof, making it an annual release when they have plenty of whiskey to do it every day on the shelf, cast strength offering.
Yeah.
And like this is just another like egregious violation of the consumer's trust.
And they
in my
could charge
opinion.
they could charge $80 probably for the batch proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean like
They could charge $80 for the double oak because if it's only $15 a bottle extra to go from Woodford Reserve to double oak,
yeah.
and
Right.
they're just basically doing the exact same time for a little bit longer, it should be another $15, but instead they're putting it in the fancy bottle and calling it.
I mean, double should be higher proof. Doesn't have to be, barrel strength, but it should
Yeah,
be
at least
higher
do
than
like
90.
100 proof.
Yeah. But I mean, this is like where I think Woodford leans a little bit too hard into their attempt to be like an ultra premium whiskey. Like it's
Yes,
just
like a luxury.
but that's what got them famous, though, right?
I know
mean,
in
they came
the
to market with
'80s,
that.
but like they're like
But
it's
that's
not
their brand. I mean, we talk about like we talk about how Barrel pissed off Jake because their whole brand is barrel proof, and then they release a low proof bourbon.
And now they came out with another low proof bourbon.
Yeah,
And it's the
It's-
same thing, but it's double barrel, and it's the same price, which is strange.
weird. Yeah, I think they're realizing their pricing is going to be out of whack here really soon when stuff's not moving as quick.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know. I think Woodford's due for like a reevaluation of their branding strategy.
I don't know though.
'cause-
We talk about this like,
but like
It's what people are
regular
willing to pay,
Woodford is
Jake,
Not
was-
that good.
was it on your list that long though?
What?
Was the double oak on your yearly allocation list very long, or did it go pretty
Yeah,
quick compared to?
no, I think the price point scared people off a little bit. It didn't fly out of there, but it is, it's gone now, and we're about 2/3 of the way through. So, but yeah, I don't know. My opinion is Woodford is your kind of luxury brand, and it's your people. The bottle looks nice, and I think 20, 30 years ago, the regular bottle of Woodford, I mean, that was considered a luxury to have that on your bar. And now I do think they're getting a little too far ahead of themselves with these price points on these other releases, but I do think people will still pay it.
Yeah, because I guarantee you, if you put up that you got 6 bottles of double oak and just put it out first to grab at a Tater release at the first people that come through can get it, it would go just as fast, if not faster, than the Willet Purple Tops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I think this one will start to sit the way that some of the batch proofs are sitting in display cases and stuff. If they're going to keep that price point.
Yeah, if they continuously make it and they make more of it, then yes, I think it will. If they make the same amount, which means we'll get 6, maybe 12 bottles a year, I still think it'll pull through. But I was shocked we put out the Woodford Batch Proof last week, and there's still some sitting on the shelf. I think there's like 3 bottles, so it'll probably be gone by the time this airs. But that's one that I've never, usually right when we put it out, it's gone.
Yeah.
So another item.
I can use the Gold Eagle app for that, right?
You can.
All right. Okay. Just want to make sure, because that's always been one of my favorites. Like,
Oh, the batch proof?
I love the Woodford Reserve Batch Proof.
They are really good.
I don't think the price is that out of line compared to a lot of other stuff. Now, it doesn't have the age that some of the other special releases have, but this at 118, 120 proof is better than a lot of the 12, 13-year-olds that I've tried out there.
Yeah, I mean,
Careful. I sounded a little like Drake saying that. I shouldn't be like
it's just a little too high on the price for me. Like, if it was like 120, 130, it would be like spot on. But like 180,
I
think
agree.
is pushing it.
With tax 180, but yeah, people will pay it. This is once again like your lawyer and doctor bottle that they're, Woodford is a premium luxury looking brand, and to have like a higher end thing, especially if you like higher proof, because
before we start talking about the Baccarat
proof
bottle, which is a whole nother thing, what's our next story, Dan?
Shift away from Brown Foreman.
Every time I go to O'Hare, that Baccarat's still sitting there. I should have bought it the one time when I was flying back from Slovenia and I was transferring in Germany, because it's when the U.S. dollar was like super close to the euro.
Yeah, it was like cheap as shit.
It was basically like $1,100 with no tax, which had been the cheapest I would have ever been able to get that for.
Yeah, you screwed up.
Yeah. I don't know.
You could have had regular 90 proof Woodford in this super expensive glass bottle.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to venture too far away from Brown Foreman, because this just came out a couple days ago. Had a Jack Daniel's warehouse collapse. And, it always
We're
sucks
about due for one of those.
Yeah, we haven't had a big fire or anything for a while. Now, just when I was reading through the article, it just made me laugh by the wording of it, because it said they lost less than 3,000 barrels. And I just think that, that shows you how much whiskey they have when they're like, it was only about 3,000.
3,000, yeah.
Only 3,000 barrels, which is...
I mean, that really is nothing for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's... When I left Whiskey Acres, we were at barrel 2580 since they opened over 10 years ago. So it's going to be 14 years for Whiskey Acres, or no, probably about 12 years for Whiskey Acres, or a day and a half maybe for Jack Daniel's.
Yeah, it's insane.
But yeah, 3,000. They said they caught it quick. It happened. They caught it super early in the morning. they got it contained so they don't feel there was that much runoff from the spill. So they shouldn't get jacked with a ton of fines from EPA or anything. I'm sure there will still be fines there, but it wasn't
most
the whole warehouse,
importantly,
it
nobody
just
was
part of the
hurt either.
warehouse. Yeah.
Nobody was injured. It was 6 a.m.
Yeah.
That classic Dan. Yeah, but I mean, you hate to see it. Doesn't matter how big or how small or what distillery, where is it. Nothing good comes from that. And I know anytime I step foot into a really old, creaky rick house, you always have that thought in the back of your mind, like some of them have collapsed. So I hope I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah, it was built. I think it was in the '60s. They said it was built just a wood rick house, tin roof. Out kind of in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, I think there was rain and stuff going through that might have led to some of it, the roof having issues. But they didn't release a ton of other information on it, but just there was a warehouse collapse. And it like I said, it took a little bit of digging around, but then the article I read said less than 3,000 barrels, which I would have said like if I was writing, it'd be like, holy shit, they lost 3,000 barrels of whiskey. But
it was all just old number 7, so we're good.
No, we don't know. We don't know what it could have been.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Could have been bonded.
It was all Jack 12.
Jack. Could have been Jack 12. So yeah, it's happened. It happens all the time in the industry, unfortunately. Especially with a lot of these things being in old buildings, and you do the maintenance to keep them up, but there's never know when an underlying issue is going to pop out when you're dealing with buildings that are, mainly just set to store barrels. It's not like they're I guess unless you're at Castle and Key where it's the old nuclear war fallout bunkers that you could stay in. That is their work houses. But most of them aren't built like that. So.
Yep.
The big story, I'm not sure when this is coming out because the auction ends February 23rd, but everyone's dream has come true. You can officially buy your own barrel of Pappy 15. About 125 bottles is what they said that you can expect, which means you're going to get it. It's going to come bottled for you. It's going to come at normal proof for you, for Pappy. And you get to keep the barrel. They're doing it as a auction to raise money for the LA fires. They also got Eagle 25 and the whole lot of Pappy collection as an auction item as well. Bidding starts at $10,000 and goes up in increments of $1,000, and it's a donation. So you're donating $1,000 as a bid.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's not like you're
for
just.
that
It's
is
not
steal.
like a normal auction where you're bidding on it. It's every time you bid, you pay them money.
That sucks.
You pay the $1,000, not the whole thing.
You pay $1,000 donation every time you bid. Highest bid
And,
takes it. So.
Yeah, I saw as of 6 hours ago, which we're recording on February 12th, so I'm sure it's way higher now when this podcast airs, but it was at $350,000 for the barrel.
That's nuts.
Probably going to see this go over $1 million, at least.
Yeah, I would say so.
What you're saying is they're doing a better job fundraising for the LA fires than we are with the bottle of what's it that we have at Gold Eagle right now?
Old Elk Rum Cask Finish Rye, which hopefully is gone by the time this episode airs as well. There's only about a fourth of the bottle left. But hey, we did our part. We did something, everyone, you can sit there and do nothing, or you can try and do something. But yeah, we're moving on from that fundraiser and going to move on to a new one because someone's going to pay over $1 million for a barrel of whiskey.
And like, to be fair, the $10,000 starting point is like actually pretty legit. Like,
Well, that would be
but it's almost like a
steal.
slap in the face. Like, we want as many $1,000 from people as possible. We want more bids.
Yeah.
Because
they started it at where it should be if someone was going to buy a barrel. Like, that's what you would expect to pay for a 15-year-old barrel of whiskey. especially getting it bottled and proof down. But yeah,
Yeah, they know this was going for well over at least minimum a couple 100,000.
yeah, it's insane, but it gives everyone a chance to win. Like, I don't know how it'll work within the laws of getting it direct to the consumer, how they're gonna do that with all the state laws, but obviously they've figured it all out.
I would assume you have to go there and pick it up.
I would guess, but then I don't
think
know.
so.
But transporting all that liquor across state lines could be a big issue.
Yeah,
I'm sure they
I don't know. I mean, hopefully they work something out because it's for a charitable cause. But yeah, I've had a few people hit me up and say, "Hey, Gold Eagle should bid on this."
Yeah.
I'm just like,
They go bankrupt.
what kind of operation do you think we're running here?
It's only $1,000 every time you hit bid, Jake.
Yeah.
It's not that much. It's just $1,000. I mean, did you get to sell that Weller Millennium to make your $25 off of that yet?
Well, we'll make a few hundred when it finally sells, but
Yeah. So, I don't know. I do think it's a cool thing, though. Like, I will give Sazerac some credit for this because I think it is a good idea and a great way to raise money for a great cause that needs a lot of money to it.
yeah, it's a great idea.
For a prize that's highly sought after from a lot of people. And, you're not seeing anyone else that has done something like this. I mean, people have made donations, and other distilleries and things have made donations for it. But they're going to put in $1 million.
Will it does some charity bidding for barrels where they've raised pretty significant amounts. I think annually they do a few barrels, and I could be off, but I think the last one they did was like 300,000 it went for like a 16-year Willet barrel. But yeah, there's not many other distilleries that do stuff like this, and I do think it's very cool, especially because one barrel to Sazerac means absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and they're going to raise a lot of money for a great cause,
even if it is Pappy 15.
Yeah.
But I mean, and at the same point, this is the first time that an individual can end up buying a barrel of Pappy. I mean, years and years ago, they would do Pappy barrel picks for some stores. But they haven't done that in a long time, I don't think. I'm not sure if anyone's been able to do it, but I know like no private
It's been a long time, and they've never done Pappy 15 from what I read.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Jake, you could just walk home and be the first person to ever buy a single Pappy barrel for being basically a nobody. Because
Me?
You just be a human person and win a barrel of Pappy.
I'd rather buy a Porsche 911.
Yeah, I don't know if one would appreciate more of the other or not, though. But
well, I would think if you're going to buy that barrel, you're going to drink through that or well it to your kids.
Well, I don't know. I would hope you would sell some of those bottles.
Yeah,
give them out as gifts.
Yeah.
I'd
like to meet
only
that
your
person.
best friends.
Yeah. I mean, technically, you could just be the lucky person that puts $1,000 in at the very, very, very last second and only spend $1,000.
Well, no, you need to put the whole
1.1 million.
Yeah. You're gonna take out a loan for 1.1 million.
Yeah. I can tell you that barrel will not get that ROI.
That's fair.
All right, how many? I'm gonna do some quick math here. They said in the article I read that it should yield about 125 bottles.
That's what I read too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how much would we have to get for bottle? And if it's within $3,000, it's worth it because that's what people are still paying for it.
Yeah, it's about $8,000 a bottle if it goes for $1 million.
But you could also the rarity of it would have some.
Yeah, I mean it's really scary and sad to say this, but I think you could get 10,000 per bottle out of this.
Well,
and
what did that? What did that Benny's bottle just go for at auction? That Benny's Pappy 12 from like the 89 or whatever that was on the auction site. I thought that
Didn't
was
it go for like $100,000 or over $100,000?
something like that. Yeah. Now that's also Stitzel Weller juice. That isn't Sazerac
Yeah,
juice.
Stitzel Weller, and it's like truly something where there might not be another bottle out there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
The issue would be if you're a private citizen, you buy that barrel. How are you going to sell it?
You telling me you wouldn't hit me up for some?
You got 10K?
But yeah, no, I mean legally, you wouldn't be allowed to sell a bottle.
No.
Right. You'd have to. I mean, a distributor wouldn't even be able to take that from you and sell it, right?
Nope.
No.
They would have to go through auction houses and things like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, you're talking about, Jeff Bezos buying your bottles at that point. If you're going through auction houses and shit.
maybe he likes Pappy.
He might.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was cool story, cool idea. But yeah, it was one of those things. It was like you knew, like when you saw the headlines, like everything I saw, and it was complete clickbait to get you to click on it. Like win your own barrel of Pappy, and then you read, if you know the article, you're like, yeah, that's not what it really says.
Well, and I think the other part, what I read, where you get the whole vertical of Pappy from 10 up to 23, or the Eagle 25. I think for that you just donate $50, and then you get it's like a raffle.
Yeah,
they draw. Yeah. So if you want to support a good cause for $50, yeah, I don't think that's really a bad bet. To be able to, I'm sure there's going to be thousands and hundreds of thousands and maybe 1 million entries. But yeah, for $50, you can have a chance to win the whole Pappy lineup.
Yeah. All right. Going on an interesting article about Diageo. Between 2023 and 2024, their whiskey sales were down 20%. Now they're
because Diageo
way
sucks.
more. They suck, and they're way more Scotch and stuff like that. They don't have nearly as many they don't have the amount invested in American brands that they do in the international brands, right?
Who's the big bourbon that they own?
Bulleit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's more on the Scotch side.
But you're saying their Scotch is down, or all over
their
whiskey is down?
Sales. Their whiskey sales were down 20% from 2023 to 2024.
I could see, like, I've noticed in our store, and I mean, I know we're a little different, but like Bulleit has slowed down big time, especially because they used to have like a 10-year and the cash strength, which don't really come out that often anymore. Plus, just the regular rye and bourbon for Bulleit were ahead of its time. Now we have so many other options out there available at that price point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decided to cut back on special releases and just stick to the basics, and I think that's what's really hurting them.
Yeah, I will say part of the thing I see, though, is I see a lot of their bourbon and rye at a lot of different bars as their, like, for an old-fashioned or one of their whiskey cocktails.
They were the number one on-premise whiskey. And I don't know if that is still true to this day, but I know a couple years ago they were the number one selling whiskey at bars and restaurants.
Yeah. I mean,
they kind of built their whole brand on being the old-fashioned Manhattan house cocktail.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of, it used to be like a perfectly priced, like, value whiskey, the bourbon and the rye. Perfect, like, both easily drinkable, neat, as well as really good in cocktails. But like you said, Jake, the number of competing bourbons and ryes has just exploded to the point where, like, it's, why pick Bulleit over anything else?
None of us, and probably most people listening to this podcast are not going to go out and grab a bottle of regular Bulleit to have around the house.
if I like what I'll have for cocktails for bourbon cocktails is a bottle of Woodford. Honestly, is what I usually just have out for
Woodford,
bourbon
Elijah
cocktails.
Craig,
Yeah,
Rittenhouse, all the Heaven Hill goodies, you know.
yeah.
Yep.
On
Always
the opposite
Heaven
side, it's not all doom and gloom for Diageo because their non-alcohol and low alcohol spirit brand sales were up 56%. Now it's not nearly the volume of what their whiskey brand sells, but that's one thing we've talked on a couple times or touched on is the NA and LAs are seeing a are seeing massive growth in the industry. Which
What qualifies as a low alcohol?
it's less than 2%, I think, or less than 1%.
Like what? I don't even know what an example of that would be.
Well, like even like NA beer still has a little bit of alcohol in it, so it's a little bit more than NA beer.
Yeah, but I thought it was like under 0.5% is
Most
considered
NA beers are 0.5%, or now there's even some that are true 0.0s. But yeah, but you know, Dan, to your point, they're seeing massive growth, but how much are they actually selling? It's a very small percentage compared to
It's a
their
very small
actual
percentage.
whiskey.
Yep.
Which is what I would expect because there are more and more people, especially the younger generations, who are opting for other things instead of drinking alcohol. So
Low alcohol is 1.2% ABV.
what is that? That's not even a White Claw.
No, this is low alcohol spirits, like your fake
I'm sure-
whiskeys, your fake vodka things for your
okay.
for your mocktails that people make all the time.
Got it. All right.
Jake, how did did you make some mocktails?
Yeah, I made
For Jenna?
for the Super Bowl. We made rosemary palomas. Everybody really liked those.
I didn't try those.
Yeah, I didn't try.
Well, yeah,
it
you're
either,
not
but
pregnant, so
all the pregnant ladies and people who were not drinking my paper planes really liked it. Which I used the Isla Finish Chattanooga again for my paper
Nice.
plane, and I think it needs to be it can't be called a paper plane if you use the Chattanooga. It has to be called I'm going down because it's smoky.
nice.
Call it a paper Blackhawk.
Good one, Dan.
Too soon, Dan. Too soon.
I made one of those in the Super Bowl too, so I can't get again about that. Stepping off of whiskey a little bit, we did an episode a few months ago about the whiskey glut that we're seeing in the U.S. and how much whiskey is sitting, and with sales falling, that it's going to be a massive amount. Article came out that not only are we having a problem in the U.S., but Mexico has about 500 million liters of excess tequila that doesn't have a home for itself right now. And the concern is that the initial reports are that tequila sales were down 3% in 2024 compared to 2023. So Mexico could be having the same issue that we're going to be seeing in the U.S. and in Scotland and things as well, where there's going to be a lot of tequila that doesn't have a sale or doesn't have a home for it, and is just going to be sitting, waiting, looking for a good home. So the industries closely mimic each other. They have their rises and their falls. Tequila held on to their tequila past whiskey just the other year in terms of sales.
Yeah, I was going to say 2023 tequila boomed, and that was its biggest year ever.
Yeah. Yep.
I think tequila maybe. I mean, I think it's a similar circumstance, but I think there's also the factor that people are becoming more educated about tequila and which tequilas are good and which ones have a bunch of crap in it. And I think the consumer is being more picky about what they're buying in terms of tequila.
That's absolutely true. And to expand on that a little bit, I do think in 2023 we saw tequila boom. 2024, we at the early stages, There was all these talks about how there's going to be an agave shortage and there's going to be a tequila shortage. So I think that kind of sparked a lot of people to plant more and make more. And I don't think there was really ever a true agave shortage. I think that was just rumors. But now you see these huge companies stepping in, and what you said, they're making not legit tequila, with diffusers and these other methods by adding things to the tequila. And a lot of people are becoming more educated about that and not wanting to drink those types of tequila. And that's most of the tequila that we see, because it's all your celebrity brands that are just buying from whoever they can find tequila, adding whatever they want to make it their own and then bottling it. And that stuff is really sort of sitting. And we're seeing a huge boom, at least in our store, on the real non-additive tequilas, but that's still a very small percentage of tequila in the market.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too with it is, like, whenever I've gone into a liquor store, the tequila aisle always is the younger demographic compared to the other aisles, it seems. And that's also the demo that's not drinking as much. So when 2023, a lot of people are buying it, but they don't drink it as much as they initially thought they would, and it just kind of sits there. And as they're doing stuff with, or as they're mixing it, they're using it, but they're not using it as much as, like a whiskey drinker will sit down and drink a whiskey every night. I don't think we're getting that with the younger demo on their tequila side.
Yeah, I also think tequila, from what I've seen, can be kind of compared a little bit more to rye whiskey. There's just a lot of variation in brand to brand. Some can be very sweet, some very earthy or vegetal. And I think tequila drinkers know what they like and they go for what they like. And a tequila drinker is happy with, like, your very serious tequila drinkers are happy with 20 bottles in their collection, where a very serious bourbon drinker will not be happy with 20 bottles. They need at least 100 bottles. To be able to choose from, or more. Yeah, I didn't want to call them out, but
Since when?
But yeah, no, I mean, bourbon. We as bourbon drinkers, we like trying all these different bourbons, and there's some that we like more than others, of course. But I don't think there's like a large percentage. Like I couldn't say like, okay, half of these bourbons I don't really like. Whereas tequila can be very different bottle to bottle and a little more polarizing than bourbon. And of course, there's probably more bourbon labels available on the average liquor store shelf than tequila.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like once you get out of that, like, what you call it, like you're like tequila, like categories, like there's like night and day difference in quality.
Or, even like from a Don Julio to
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and like once you get into the like, craft, additive free tequilas, it's a massive quality difference between those and, your like $15 bottle of Cuervo or whatever, which Cuervo's not even really a tequila. So,
it's college tequila.
It's not actually illegally a tequila. It says on the bottle it's tequila flavored liquor.
So from our neighbors down in Mexico to up to Canada, we've talked about tariff stuff before. Trump had put in tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada, but then immediately put a stall on them for about a week. We're getting close to that deadline at time of recording this podcast. But Canada,
I thought it was 30 days.
Was it 30 days?
I think so.
I can't remember what it was. So there is a temporary hiatus on the tariffs. Now, Canada had come out right away and said that not only would they retaliate on a tariff war with their own tariffs of 25%, but that they would also not sell American liquor in Canada.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, enjoy your stupid Crown Royal.
Yeah,
Canada.
They're all going to be drinking Crown Apple up there? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, also it's good for us.
Yeah.
More for us.
Yeah, but I'm sure they would still be exporting stuff. I don't drink a ton of Canadian. I don't drink much Canadian. I don't think I drink any Canadian whiskey really. Well, found North. It's about the only Canadian brand I drink, but
Yeah, I was gonna say
bigger
Canadian
thing-
whiskey kind of gets a bad rap because of things like Crown Royal, but
Yeah.
they're
Yep. Do we lose him?
sorry, I
there,
like
Jake?
cut out and I was super delayed on
Yeah.
that comment, but there's a lot of good Canadian whiskey out there being made by like Alberta Premium, Found North.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we're not selling to Canada, then there's going to be a bunch of stuff that, well, they don't get a ton of like the allocated stuff out there. I watch a couple
the
streamers
staples,
that are
though.
whiskey fans.
Your Jims and Jacks and stuff are flooding in there. So
Yeah. You know, the only thing that would
And
really
that's really
affect
all
me
they
is
want up there.
right, yeah.
the effect it'd have on me is if they put a high tax on Canadian stuff. I like a Molson when I watch my hockey games every now and then. But that's about my Canadian drinking. Which, by the way, I had never had Molson until I was like 24, 25 years old. Phenomenal beer. Loved it.
I've never had it.
It's way better than any American cheap crap. Or
What is
cheap-
it, a lager?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, but so yeah, if that does happen, we'll find out in less than a month. But there could be some more whiskey staying in America. Jake, yeah, okay, Jake's still there. It looks like. Last story
neither.
that I have. A lot of people might have not. This is a local story to Northern Illinois. A lot of people might not even know or have heard of this distillery because despite the fact that they're actually a fairly decent sized distillery, they don't have a lot of product on the shelves, especially like they're a local distillery. They're 30 minutes from Whiskey Acres. It's called Kenay Farms. They're out of Rochelle, Illinois. But like even in DeKalb, you don't see their stuff on the shelves. They had some rye that's been out for a little bit. It's a young rye. They had their first ever 4-year-old bourbon come out not too long ago. It's interesting. So I haven't been there. I've seen a lot of the photos of it. They're in an old theater in downtown Rochelle. Is their whole distillery operation. And when they built it, they built this beautiful distillery, very nice equipment, with the thought that they were going to make their own stuff and do contract distilling. They haven't. The big area they struggle at as a company is marketing and sales, which is not a great thing when you're in business to struggle at, to say the least. So that's why a lot of people don't know who they are. But right at the end of the year, they had posted that they were putting their facility up for sale, which would be their entire production facility, as well as all of their over 1,000 aging barrels in the rick house. I think there's more than that, actually. You didn't get the property, but you got basically, you still had to pay rent on the facility, but you could get all the equipment inside of it and everything. So that had went up for sale right at the end of the year. Wasn't sure what was going to happen. And it came out a couple weeks ago that Rockin' Vodka, which is Rick Nielsen's vodka brand, is collaborating with them. Not a ton of details are out on it, but it sounds like, and Jake, Gold Eagle Jake, can talk about some stuff that he's seen on his end or heard because he was telling me about some of this stuff. They're going to be collaborating together because Rockin' Vodka does have a sales and marketing team. So I think they're going to try and sell whiskey, but underneath maybe their own brand or a different brand. And on top of that, I'm wondering if they're going to move their vodka production there. And then the other thing I'm not sure about either with Rockin' Vodka is they were using Rush Creek up in Harvard as their bottling facility. So I don't know if they're going to move everything in-house to Rochelle for Rockin' Vodka now or what the setup's going to be officially there. But it was, I don't think everything's fully hashed out yet either on that. Just because I know some of the people that are involved a little bit. So I don't know if everything's all fully hashed out, but this could be something different that we're seeing, or we could see a new label on shelves soon, or it might just be Kenay Farms label, but Jake, what have you heard and what have you seen on your end of the spectrum?
I don't know. It sounds pretty sketchy, Dan, to be honest. But distillery goes up for sale. Buy 1,000 barrels. Pretty inexpensive. And then a vodka brand by Rick Nielsen, celebrity, comes in and is going to launch their bourbon there. I mean, I think it's a good move by them if that's what they're doing. If they're going to use the facility for bottling, and going to play around with the bourbon a little bit. But I'm already seeing ads about bid or whatever to sign up and pick the first single barrel of Rockin' Vodka's new bourbon. And the fact that they just released a 4-year bourbon and it's their oldest bourbon definitely has me a little skeptical. So it seems like they're and the wording that I saw and read, it seemed like they weren't really aware of how single barrels work, or how the bourbon industry is operated. The wording just seemed pretty off on the whole article situation that I read.
I mean, to me, it seems like a right place, wrong time kind of scenario for them. Like,
Yeah.
you get a really nice facility, and you're like all in on a business model that like would have boomed 7 years ago.
I mean, they've been around for a while, but they didn't start too much after Whiskey Acres started.
No, I think he's talking about Rockin' Vodka coming out with the bourbon.
Vodka. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it, is trying to help move some of their inventory. Because like I said, I don't know I know they have bottling stuff there. I don't know if they're going to be doing bottling there. And maybe I don't know where they were having Rockin' Vodka distilled at before. I just know Harvard Creek or Rush Creek was bottling it. So I don't know if they're going to move bottling and then start production there. When Kennedy Farm started, like, they had some money behind them. They put in a lot of good stuff. And then they just, no one ever contracted with them, because small contract distilling isn't something that a lot of people are really out there looking for. Like, you have these really massive contract distillers that can probably do it much quicker and cheaper for you. So that was, I think, one of their issues.
Especially in Rochelle. No offense, Dan, and no offense, David, if you're listening. My new friend who lives out that way.
Yeah, I mean, DeKalb's far enough away, and then you got to go another 30 minutes west to get to Rochelle. Just to kind of talk about, like I said, I don't want to. People might think I'm a little biased against them just because I worked for pretty much their biggest competitor, with Whiskey Acres being right down the road. But it was in end of November or December they released their first ever 4-year bourbon, and they're a big size distillery. And even though Rochelle is not a big town, they're not too far from Rockford. They're not too far from DeKalb Sycamore. We know how all of us whiskey people are. A new distillery releasing their first ever bourbon, like, they didn't hype it up that much. Like, you didn't see much on their social about it. And their opening day, I think they sold like 200 or 300 bottles at max, that I thought I heard from somebody, which that could have been wrong. I feel confident with the source that I know it wasn't much. But it's like, man, when Whiskey Acres still does their seasonal releases, they're selling 600, 800, 900 bottles. You would think for the first ever bourbon release, they would have a lot of hype and stuff behind it, and it just didn't pan out. And then shortly after that's when the notice came up. Or no, I'm sorry, like 2 days before the 4-year release their bourbon release came out, is when it was announced that they were going to be up for sale.
That probably didn't help.
No, that probably didn't help either. I think that they probably didn't get a lot of interest, because I know they were also reaching out to distilleries and shopping barrels around to see if people were interested in buying inventory. But with the glut, there's just so much inventory out there that people probably weren't interested or show much interest at all. And they were trying to figure out what to do, and this opportunity came along. Rockin' vodka and whiskey are completely different things in terms of barrel picks. You don't do barrel picks of vodka. You don't have anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, I don't know for sure. I haven't been to the Hard Rock in Rockford to know if they're using Rockin' Vodka at the Hard Rock Casino in
I'm
Rockford.
sure they are.
So I don't know if they'll
Didn't-
get a boost with a lot of their whiskey going there because I know Rick Nielsen's guitar is out. Like,
Yeah, his
they have a
guitar
big
is like
Rick
the
Nielsen
main.
guitar out front.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be fools not to, but
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
but yeah,
if anybody doesn't know who Rick Nielsen is, he's the guitarist for Cheap Trick.
and he's
Yeah,
from Rockford.
Yeah,
right,
he's from
So he
the
is a local
Rockford,
guy.
Illinois, and
The
yeah.
Rockford. Did you just say
The
the
Rockford.
Rockford?
I was gonna say the Rockford area. I cut myself off.
But I don't know. It sounds cheesy. It sounds cash grabby that a celebrity vodka brand is partnering with this distillery that's been up for sale and has under 5-year-old bourbon, and now they're coming out with a bourbon, and you get to bid to go and help them with the first barrel pick and get a signed bottle.
I mean, I'll put the positive spin on it. At least it's going to somebody local, and they're gonna do something, Illinois focused.
The last thing you ever want to see is a local distillery from a small area have an issue.
Totally
I mean,
agree.
the place is, from all the pictures I've seen, I know the building that they're in. It's a beautiful setup, beautiful location, but I just don't think they ever got the traffic they thought. Like I said, I've only tried one of their 2-year-old ryes when it was released.
You're
And
not
it
the
was their-
best judge of that either.
I'm not going to be the best judge of that, and at the same point, it's one of the first things they've released. And if you
Yeah.
go back to the first stuff Whiskey Acres released, it's going to taste completely different. So, like, I get it. I don't want to be a harsh critic on it because of that, understanding everything. But it's like, you never want to see anyone fail in this industry. So hopefully this can help them out and keep them going. And if anything, at least move some of the barrels that they're sitting on so they don't have to sit on a bunch of barrels that aren't going to sell if things aren't going well. But maybe Rick Nielsen has a few tricks up his sleeve.
Ooh.
See what
I hope it. I hope it works
I think
out. I really do. As sketchy as it sounds, I really do hope it works out for him. And I honestly, I shouldn't be talking bad at all because I have never tasted their whiskey. Hopefully, some listener out there has a bottle of the whiskey and can share a little bit because I am very interested in trying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of the roundup of news for the first just over a month in the whiskey industry. We don't sit down and do a lot of stuff like this very often because we either have a topic or a guest or something on. But I thought there's a lot of we just figured that there's a lot of interesting stuff going on that was worth talking about. So they kind of nice to do a little news recap on some things. Going to be an interesting year in the whiskey industry, I have a feeling. So we'll see what keeps coming out. But yeah, oh man, we got to talk about something. So we got to think of a discount code. We talked about a lot of brown.
Well, we don't
Form.
have to, but if you have a good idea,
Well, if you're going to give
can.
away free
Dan's
money,
just
then I feel you
volunteering
should.
up. Discount.
Yeah.
I was
Either-
just thinking like it's probably time to not give one out so that it's not expected every episode. But
Oh,
if you
okay.
if you have a great idea, Dan, I'm all for it.
I was going to say you could give me 50% off on one of those batch proof Woodfords.
Okay, I'll charge you double and then give you 50% off.
Oh! No, let's not do one. We just did news. We didn't really talk about anything.
I mean,
enough, so
Yeah, if
No,
I were
that's
to
not-
drop one on the
Nope.
batch proof, I bet you it's going to be gone. The
Yeah,
last
before the
couple,
Zoom airs.
if you're fiending for a discount, the last couple episodes, I think there were some really, really good discount codes in there
Yeah.
for some really
Yeah.
good bottles. So make sure you check those out. And yeah, just check out the inventory at the store, goldeaglewine.com. You can see everything we have. You can shop online, download our app, follow us on Facebook at Gold Eagle Spirits, follow us on Instagram at Gold Eagle Wine. Reach out with ideas. Come try the charity bottles that we have.
I'd say
support
come
great
if
cause.
you're there. If you're there, swing back, have a pour the charity bottle. It's what is it?
Yeah,
Well,
100%
the-
goes to charity.
The Old Elk is what's the cost on
Old
it?
Elk rum cask. It's $5 for a half ounce, and 100% of that money goes toward the California wildfires. As soon as that bottle empties, we're gonna bring in a new bottle. which I don't know if you want to tease it or not, but it's something really good. Yeah, we're going to be doing this all year long. See how much money we can raise for some good causes that we believe in.
Yeah. So yeah, real quick, we're gonna partner with another charity. We'll be doing this one for a few months rather than just the single month. So the next, basically throughout this charity's run, I'm gonna do 3 different bottles of Stag. So be on the lookout for those. Jake will post it on a Wednesday when it goes live. So make sure you're watching on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff.
Where can people listen to our podcast and watch our stuff, Jake?
You can watch us on Spotify and YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and basically any other podcast platform. Check us out on Instagram at Bourbon Matters. I nailed everything, right?
I think so. You're sick.
Think so.
You can get off.
Yeah, I'm like in a deep fog.
Yeah. Jake's not going to make it out of his office the 5 steps to his bedroom to go to bed after this. He's going to collapse on the floor. So. All right, guys. It was good catching up again. Cheers and see you for the next episode.
Cheers, guys.